I believe that we left off at Ephes Stucco, chapter 9. We were about to talk about Ephes Stucco. I was going to show you a little video here that explains about Ephes. Um, and it's basically stucco. It stands for exterior insulation finishing system. Let me optimize the video here. And I'll play this video for you with this realtor from Georgia or something that explains to you what Ephes is. He does a pretty good job of it, so here we go.
Hello, I'm Jim McElroy. I'm a licensed real estate agent in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm going to show you what happens behind the scenes when this beautiful stucco facade fails and show you how we decided to repair this home's exterior. I will try to address your concerns about stucco and also provide tips on what to look for if you currently own a stucco home or considering buying a home that has a stucco exterior. Exterior Insulating Finishing System, Ephes for short, also known as stucco, is a gorgeous facade for both residential and commercial construction. It has superior insulating qualities, it is flexible, and it holds paint well. While it can add to your home's curb appeal, it is anything but maintenance free. This is a cutaway piece of Ephes siding. It is essentially a thick styrofoam material applied to your home's wooden exterior. It receives a base coat of synthetic material fortified by a fiberglass mesh, and then receives a final coat of synthetic material, and finally a coat of exterior paint. When the application of stucco was gaining popularity in the 1980s, it was common for the installation to be faulty or substandard, later requiring extensive remediation. After remediation, it is a must that the stucco be inspected on a periodic basis and maintained routinely. The problem with Ephes usually occurs at points where the Ephes meets roof lines, windows, doors, and of course the ground. If not properly sealed or waterproof, moisture can wick in behind the styrofoam and soak into the home's exterior wood sheathing. This is normally oriented strand board or OSB. OSB soaks up moisture like a sponge and will deteriorate rapidly when exposed to moisture. As you see here, once the wood exterior is wet, it becomes attractive for infestation from wood-destroying insects such as carpenter ants or termites. Anywhere there is space for water to pass the waterproof barrier of the stucco, at windows, doors, cracks, or holes, you can count on problems. A small crack in a caulk joint will allow enough moisture to pass to cause this kind of damage. Most of the damage is hidden, but you can watch for discoloration, surface cracking, and bulging in the stucco caused by swelling of the underlying substrate. Once the stucco is removed, you can see that the main damage to this house was from water seeping in at this window behind the Ephes. You have extensive damage and deterioration to the OSB sheathing, the header of this door, and to the rim joist that supports that wall, as well as the framing inside the wall itself. Over here closer to the ground, water has seeped in at the corners of this window and has deteriorated the OSB sheathing, also allowed infestation by either carpenter ants or termites, and there is extensive moisture damage to the framing of this wall. This is 4 2x6s sandwiched together that are roughly eaten away, and the OSB is just flaking away as well. I recommend for my clients that wish to sell or buy a stucco home to have an inspection by an EDI certified inspector. This will involve a visual inspection as well as a moisture probe to identify problem areas. Areas showing excess moisture levels will almost certainly have associated rot or deterioration. This will necessitate the removal of all of the OSB sheathing from this wall, the repair of all the affected framing members, then the installation of a new facade, which in this case will be vinyl siding.
Wow. So you got to maintain it. You get that little cracks, you get some water in there, and it really messes up what's behind and could cost you a lot more in the end. So when buying houses like this, we should always advise the buyers, get that home inspection. They got to check and see if that EIFS stucco is in good shape or not, or if it is EIFS, because not all stucco is EIFS. It's just that EIFS got a better seal or a seal to it. The thing is, it traps moisture behind the wall, and then it could cause all kinds of issues like this. So, uh, your home inspector, your New Jersey licensed home inspector, can check for that, but usually it'll require them to punch a little hole through the stucco to find out, and then they'll fill it in with a little caulk. Um, Carbon monoxide. It's known as the silent killer. Uh, Everything on this planet is carbon based. However, the carbon monoxide, anytime something is burns, a side effect is the gas of carbon monoxide. It basically takes the oxygen out of the room there. So it's an invisible, odorless, tasteless gas. It's a byproduct of carbon-based fuels that are not fully burnt. Now, state law requires that all buildings with attached garages or any appliances that burn fuels have to have at least one working carbon monoxide detector installed. Many municipalities require one on each level, and some require hardwired detectors to have battery backups because when there are fires, they do melt the wires and electricity's gone. You have no alarm, so they want those battery backups. The battery ones are better as long as those batteries are changed when they run dead. Now, there's a new law that pertains to carbon monoxide detectors, not the fire and smoke detectors, just the carbon monoxide detectors that requires them to be 10 years have 10-year sealed batteries that cannot be removed. Because a lot of people, when they start beeping, they just remove the batteries. But when it beeps, that's telling you that, hey, it's still working, but it's time to change the batteries. Get up off your lazy butt and go change the batteries. That's what that beeping noise is. But those are not allowed anymore. You have to have 10-year sealed batteries in there. Um, and then, I mean, every 10 years you should be replacing those detectors anyway, because the sensor element, they get this film that gets over, that covers them, and they're not as effective anyway. Kind of like if you ever seen, that film that gets on the windows if you got a smoker. You ever see a smoker's house or car, the windows, they get that film over them? Well, it does the same thing on those smoke detectors, and it makes them less effective, whether they're smokers or not. So this 10-year battery CO detector requirement is put in place to prevent those people from removing the batteries because it's an invisible, odorless, tasteless gas. You won't know until it's too late if you got a problem. So let's highlight this on page 156. Carbon monoxide, its element is CO, is the colorless, odorless gas that occurs as a byproduct of burning fuels like wood, oil, natural gas, anything that burns due to incomplete combustion. We even hear every now and then news stories. A couple of years ago, I remember hearing a news story in New Jersey where guys shoveling snow shoveling the car out of snow. He digs so that he could open the door. The family gets in, starts the car, lets it warm up while he's digging the car out. That's all snowed in. By the time he's done, he goes in the car and his family's dead because the tailpipe was covered with snow. So the gas was going into the car. They all fell asleep, or so he thought. And in the meantime, they were dying. So you get people now that they're like, oh, there should be warning labels in cars, Yeah, carbon monoxide will kill you. Don't breathe in the gas. Okay, we need a warning label for everything. Just don't be stupid. You got to be aware of these things. Okay, so It inhibits the blood's ability to transport oxygen and results in dizziness, nausea. You know what? I'll let a doctor explain to you. We'll have a little video on that. All right, so this law went into effect in 2019 that requires those 10-year sealed batteries in those carbon monoxide detectors now. Here's a case in Linden, in a town that I live in.
Linden fire officials
But it happened. This kind of stuff happens all over the place. So here, let me jack up the volume because this one's really quiet. I know. Let's watch this.
Linden fire officials inspecting the home where a 9-year-old boy died and his 10-year-old sister was critically injured. Investigators believe a basement furnace malfunctioned, flooding the home with carbon monoxide, an odorless, colorless, and deadly gas. The alarm on the carbon monoxide detector should have gone off, but the batteries were dead.
It's a horrible tragedy. A lot of people don't know the problems with carbon monoxide.
Just 2 weeks ago, Linden firefighters and the Red Cross went door to door here on Passaic Avenue in Linden. Volunteers offered free batteries or new detectors, but firefighters say it appears the mother here never called to claim hers.
She's a very good mother, very good mother.
Arlene Carolina lives across the street. She used to babysit for the 9- and 10-year-old children when their mother went to work as a nurse. Carolina could barely speak when she learned the boy had died.
Said that the brother had passed away. So
investigators say the brother and sister were sleeping in a bedroom directly above the basement furnace that was spewing the toxic gas. Their mother called 911 and tried doing CPR to save her children. For her son, it was too late. He was in 3rd grade at School 4 in Linden. The superintendent says there will be grief counselors all week.
You know, that's a sad thing, but it's preventable. Now, that wasn't a very good segue that they did there. Saying that the mother never claimed her free carbon monoxide detector or batteries, and then they say she's a very good mother. You know, that didn't sound that good. But she was a nurse. She probably was working, came home from work, missed the you were knocking on the door to door. Either way, I remember hearing this on the radio, and there was people that are outraged about this. Some people were like, "Oh, she should go to jail. They're required to have the batteries in the detector," and she took the batteries out because, yeah. I got a friend on the fire department. He said that the story was a little bit different than this. The batteries were not in the detector. I guess it was because it was beeping, so they took the batteries out. So you had some people that were yelling, "Oh, she should go to jail for this. She should be accused with the death because she removed the batteries and it's required by law." Then other people were saying, "Well, you know what? I think she suffered enough. She just lost a child, So, does it make sense to be, now going after her because of the batteries and the detector?" But either way, these are preventable deaths. And it's unfortunate, but they do happen every year. Well, they say about 200 of them happen in New Jersey alone every year. Okay, here's another story here. You'll hear about the professionals and and a doctor will talk to you a little bit about carbon monoxide poisoning.
Most of you probably have your heat turned on this morning to stay warm in your home. Take a look at the temperature gauge there, 5 degrees. That heater that you're using is putting out carbon monoxide, and for some of you, you may be breathing that in without even knowing it. It's the time of year when we fire up our furnace, warm up our cars, take hot showers, putting our hot water heaters to use.
There's a vent on every furnace, there's a vent on every water heater. However, certain conditions can cause that to maybe not vent out.
And that could mean low levels of carbon monoxide are leaking into your home. Terry Kemper is testing the CO levels on this furnace.
So in this case, it says 26.
That's 26 parts per million, which Kemper says is safe.
35 parts per million is the area in which action needs to be taken.
And your furnace needs to be serviced. Most of us are familiar with carbon monoxide poisoning when something like this happens.
The teen and 3 other family members were on the verge of dying from carbon monoxide poisoning.
This family was exposed to a high amount because a car was left running in their garage. But some people breathe in low levels of carbon monoxide every day.
and that can also lead to health problems.
Kind of like flu-like symptoms. You'll feel nausea, fatigue, headaches, dizziness.
That can turn into bigger issues down the road.
Memory loss, agitation, confusion, balance disturbances.
Dr. Mark Larson says there's almost no way to test someone for low-level CO poisoning.
If someone's been exposed to a low-level chronic or long-term exposure, it's really difficult to make that diagnosis.
So if you feel the symptoms day after day, it might be a good idea to have someone check out your home.
Now, Kemper says cars are actually the biggest culprit for CO poisoning, especially when they're left running in a garage that's attached to the house. So never leave a car running inside of your garage, and also get a carbon monoxide detector. Have one on every level of your house in those living areas. Kemper says that is just cheap insurance.
Good reminders, too, because especially this time of year, you're more likely to suffer.
And when you change the batteries in your smoke alarms, you know you probably do that during daylight saving time. Go ahead and change the batteries in your carbon monoxide detector as well. It does you no good if it doesn't have batteries.
Good advice.
Well, that's why we have that new law where you don't have to change the batteries anymore. They have to be those 10-year sealed batteries.
Most of you.
Okay, so coming up next, we're going to go over EMFs that come from electromagnetic fields from the high-tension power lines, groundwater contamination, and underground storage tanks we'll discuss. Now, here's a little discussion here. This video talks about electromagnetic fields, but then they go on to tell you how the World Health Organization, who I don't trust as far as I could spit, they go on to say, oh, there's probably nothing to worry about, but further testing is needed, that's why we're pulling out of the World Health Organization, the WHO, because they lie to us about every major thing that ever happens. They lie to us about COVID. They lie to us about all kinds of stuff, vaccines and all kinds of things. So we're better off just going with our own health departments here in the United States instead of the WHO.
Hello, I'm Dr. Manny, and I'm here to answer your questions. Scientists and doctors make medical advances in cancer treatment every day. But we still don't know exactly why one person develops the disease and the other doesn't. We got this question from a viewer.
Dear Dr. Manny, I'm currently house hunting with my pregnant wife and came across a beautiful house that is almost perfect, except for the huge power lines directly behind it. I've heard some studies show an association between exposure to power lines and cancer. How worried should I be if I want to pursue this house? Thanks, Dan.
Well, Dan, power lines produce low to mid-frequency magnetic fields, or EMFs. According to the National Cancer Institute, these EMFs are in the non-ionizing radiation part of the electromagnetic spectrum and are not known to damage DNA or cells directly. But some scientists speculate that they could cause cancer in other ways. In 2002, the International Agency for Research on Cancer classified extremely low-frequency magnetic fields as possibly carcinogenics to humans. The classification was based on studies that showed a twofold increase in childhood leukemia among children with exposure to high levels of magnetic fields in the home. But for more on that, we checked in with a cancer epidemiologist at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York.
After these early studies, there has been many other studies done with better methodology, and in general, these newer and better studies did not confirm the association between having a very high exposure. The high exposure was mainly coming from the wiring configuration within the home, not really from outside the home. Several international and national agencies have, including the World Health Organization, have reviewed the entire body of evidence and concluded that under most circumstances, there is really no risk from exposure to electromagnetic fields. More research is needed to confirm whether the early studies maybe gave some signal in very exceptional circumstances.
Thanks, Doc. Do you have a health question? Tweet me at Dr. Manny on Fox. Until next time, I'm Dr. Manny.
All right. And then we have the New Jersey Private Well Testing Act. It requires that any property where the primary source of potable water, that's drinking water, comes from an on-site private well, or in some cases an off-site well. I forget how many sites it needs to feed in order for that to apply to it as well. It requires the well water be tested by the owner, and both parties must sign off that they received a copy of the test results. Otherwise, the contract is not legally binding. Now, it is possible contaminants in public water or private wells can contain any type of contamination. Here's just a few. Even in the public water systems, even though they treat it, there are some contaminants that they don't test for and don't check that we often have in there. They don't test for everything. We got some pretty nasties in our water sometimes. Some things could be arsenic, radon, microorganisms, nitrates, heavy metals, organic chemicals, those radionuclides, like radon from radon gas, those radioactive things, fluoride, etc. Heck, in some instances, they put fluoride in the water. But anyway, what is the purpose of the New Jersey Private Well Testing Act? It says that when the primary source of water is coming from a well, that well water needs to be tested, and both parties need to sign off that they got a copy of the test results. Otherwise, the contract is not legally binding, whether it's for sale or for lease. So let's highlight that here on page 157 on the third paragraph.
Got it. Got it.
Okay.
I got it.
All right, everybody. So where does water come from? Where does water come from? Where do we get water from? Where does water come from? Where do the water companies get water from?
From the rivers.
Okay, come on, everybody, give me some feedback here.
From water tanks?
Water tanks? What do you mean by water tanks? Like collection tanks?
Underground storage water tanks?
Well, well water are you talking about?
Well, that too, yeah, but underground storage tanks that just hold water and it's just split for the community.
Well, where does that water come from? Where do you get water from? Just think of science, and normally, where do you see water? Where does water come from?
Clouds, rain.
Yeah.
From the ocean.
There you go. You got the water cycle, right? What about it melting, snow melting on mountain tops and all that stuff, right? So here we're gonna have a little series of videos here that talk about water treatment, how the water gets to your house, how it gets there under pressure. Then we're gonna have a video about pipes in a house. That's pretty interesting. This is a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't really think of, because these are those modern conveniences that you're so used to having in front of you that you don't even think about it.
Where does your water come from?
My sink.
My sink.
Sink. The sky.
It comes from...
Let me optimize these videos. Sorry about that.
Through the faucet in my sink. Usually the faucet, I don't know, comes from a lake.
The creek.
Mountains. Probably a reservoir or...
I believe it comes from the sewer.
That's a pretty nasty thought right there, but she's not entirely wrong in some cases.
Oh, hello. You caught me singing in the rain, which is where you may have seen me starring in that famous dance scene.
Hey, wow. You've been around a long time.
What can I say? I keep making comebacks.
Is that your way of saying you know a thing or two about the water cycle?
Absolutely. I am a bit of a water expert. Get it? Spurt, water, you know.
Very funny, Splash. Hey, let's get down to business. Water is one of our most essential resources.
But many people don't know where it comes from.
The water cycle is the continuous movement of water on, above, and below the surface of the earth. Surface water is all of the water we see: lakes, rivers, streams, and of course the ocean. Heat and wind cause surface water to evaporate, forming water vapor, which rises into the atmosphere.
Now you see me, now you don't.
The higher the vapor rises in the sky, the colder it gets. The vapor freezes in tiny crystals and forms a cloud. This is called condensation.
I'm flying! Woo-hoo-hoo!
Water falls back to the earth as rain or snow.
My precipitation skills make a big splash!
As the water returns to the surface.
Now, things get interesting, depending on where I land.
That's right. If you land in the ocean, you will eventually evaporate and return to the clouds.
True, but if I land on a high mountain, I'll freeze.
When snow and ice melt, the water either runs off into a stream or is absorbed into the ground.
That water collects far beneath the surface.
We call that layer of groundwater an aquifer.
To complete the water cycle, groundwater seeps back into surface water, and the whole process begins again.
To review. Evaporated surface water rises as vapor, collects in a cloud, and falls to earth as rain or snow. Some of the water runs off into lakes, rivers, and the ocean. Some is absorbed into the ground, where it eventually seeps into surface water. Simple.
Thank you, Splash.
No problem. I'm hitting the shower.
Where does your water come from?
My...
Okay, so how does the drinking water get to your house?
How does drinking water get to your home?
Wow, I'm not really sure. Probably through a series of pipes.
Pipes.
Pipes
And all that?
through pipes.
I have no clue.
I assume it comes up through the pump in the ground?
Through a filter?
Gets to a house with a pump, water pump.
Ah, nature. So beautiful and calm.
Hey, Splash, did you know that reservoirs like this are one of the places where we get our drinking water?
Wait a minute there. You don't want to drink this stuff. I'm telling you, I've been in a lot of water, including this reservoir. You know what's in there? Fish. You know what they do, right? They...
Oh, Splash, don't even go there.
You know, a lot happens to this water before we can drink it.
You're telling me? Hey, I've been cleaned up a few times.
New Jersey American Water's experts work round the clock, removing bacteria, viruses, micropollutants, and other harmful particles from the water you drink. They do such a good job that American Water often provides water service that is better than what the government requires.
The treatment process begins here, at the pumping station.
Pumps draw raw water from reservoirs, lakes, rivers, streams, wells, or underground aquifers. Water travels by pipeline from the pumping station to the treatment facility. The first step in the cleaning process removes sediment and particles from the water with the help of coagulants.
What?
Coagulants are chemicals that act like magnets. They cause particles in the water to stick together. These groups of particles are called floc.
Huh, I didn't know I had it in me.
American Water uses two common processes to separate and remove flock from water. One sinks flock to the bottom of a tank. The other method pumps air into the water and flock, causing residual particles to float to the top. The separation of water and flock is called clarification. With either method, the clarification process removes most of the flock from the water. The next step? Filtration.
Whoa! Hey, watch it! Wow, can a water droplet get a bruise? Sheesh! Ow! Wow, I just got pushed through layers of activated carbon, sand, and gravel. Please tell me I'm clean.
Yeah, sorry, Splash. You're not completely out of the water. You're filtered, but you might be infected with tiny microorganisms. Don't worry, disinfection doesn't hurt. Chlorine and ozone are just two of the ways we disinfect water at New Jersey American Water.
I love chlorine. It's been disinfecting water and keeping me clean for over a century. But what's ozone?
Ozone is supercharged oxygen. These bubbles scrub and disinfect. Viruses, germs, and fungi don't stand a chance.
Whoa! Hey, that tickles! Stop it already! I'm gonna wet my pants!
Hey, Splash, guess what? You're finally drinking water. Ready for distribution to homes and businesses.
Are you sure? How do you know?
New Jersey American Water certified operators and water quality specialists test and monitor water throughout the treatment process, from source to tap. In fact, we conduct thousands of tests on your drinking water.
I'm certified, verified, decontaminized, and feeling fine.
All right, so next up we talk about a little bit about the pumping stations after the water comes from the filtration plants where the water gets treated. But these things can't be constantly running. That would use up so much energy and drive up the cost of water. So we have water towers. They're usually very tall. They hold millions of gallons of water. And they hold that, and then the water can come down on demand under pressure just simply from its own weight and the height delivered out to the homes. And it comes out under such high pressure that we actually need pressure reducing valves in our houses. Otherwise, it could damage our appliances even. So here.
At New Jersey American Water, we work hard to keep your life flowing. One question we're sometimes asked is, what do water towers do? We have nearly 200 water towers across the state, and they provide water pressure throughout our system. Each foot of height provides almost half a pound per square inch of water pressure, so they must be tall enough to supply the needed pressure to customers in the area. The tanks themselves are quite large and can hold upwards of 10 million gallons of water. That's over 300 times the amount of water in an average swimming pool. Water towers are also used as storage to help supply extra water when a lot of people are using water at the same time, like in the morning and evening when people are taking showers, using the bathroom, and cooking. During the middle of the day and overnight, when less water is being used, we restore levels in the water towers so they are ready to be tapped again. Just one more way we keep life flowing.
What's up, guys?
Now this is a good video about the pipes and the type of piping and systems in your average house. And I'm going to chime in on this video at a couple points as well.
And welcome back to another instructional video. In this video, I want to cover how the plumbing works in a typical home. Everything we do pretty much relies on plumbing when you think of it for a second. Whether it's washing your car or brushing your teeth before going to bed, you're using your home's plumbing system. A home's plumbing system is composed of 4 things: waste drains, waste vents, potable water, and rainwater management. So let's go through each process one by one and talk about what they do. Let's start off with the drains. Most homes have either ABS, PVC, or cast iron drain pipes and vents. These pipes are connected to all the fixtures in the home, such as toilets, sinks, bathtubs, and showers. When the fixture is used, the waste is carried inside these drain pipes that have a slight slope to them down the main drain, up until it reaches the municipal drain under the street. I'll also show where this waste goes later in the video. Every here and there, you'll find cleanouts like this. These are what give you access to the inside of the pipes in case there's a blockage. Most homes in the US also have these outside, so it's easier for the plumber to access it. As for pipe sizes, most toilet drains are 3 inches, kitchen and bathroom sinks are 1.5 inches or 2 inch if it's wet vented, and showers and bathtubs are 2 inches by code. The main stacks are either 3 inches or 4 inches depending on what the code asks for and your municipality. But some homes don't have municipal services, so how do they get rid of their waste? Simple. The main drain pipe that would normally go to the sewers goes into what's called a septic tank. This septic tank, which is either concrete or polyethylene, separates the solids from the liquids and flows into a leach field or drain field, which then goes into the ground to get naturally filtered. The solids, though, eventually need to get pumped out by a vacuum truck to make sure it functions properly. Now onto the venting. For these fixtures and drains to function adequately, the system needs to be properly vented. When a toilet is flushed, for example, the water pushes the air downstream, causing a negative pressure behind it. The vents are what equalize this change in pressure to prevent things like gurgling and P-traps being siphoned out, which would allow for sewer gases to find their way inside your home. These vents get their air through the roof and need to stay clear from bird nests and debris, or you're assured of having problems. Something else this vent serves is to relieve any pressure buildup inside the actual municipal sewer line. Some cities had their manhole covers blast up 50 feet in the air because rats would chew on electrical wires and would in turn create a spark and ignite the methane gas inside the sewers. So the vent minimizes the chances of this happening. As for potable water goes, it comes from the street like the other services and typically has between 40 to 80 psi of pressure. Every home with a water supply from this city has to have a shut-off valve outside just like this, in case the city needs to close the water. This copper line, which is normally 3/4 of an inch in size, comes into the basement through the concrete slab to another shut-off valve, which is only accessible to the homeowner. Here we see the hot water tank. Your hot water tank, which is either electric or gas fed, is fed cold water to then heat it up and distribute it throughout the house thanks to the city's pressure. Some homes still have CPVC or copper lines, but new constructions use mostly PEX as it's reliable and quick to install.
All right, now PEX, let me stop there and give you something. If you got a house, a listing that's in a neighborhood that people like to cut the pipes out and steal the copper because they're a bunch of drug addicts that like to then go sell the copper so that they could go buy their drugs. This is not an uncommon thing that happens in vacant houses or empty units even. I've had a situation where the person lived in the house and they were cutting out the copper from the other units except for theirs. You know, the landlord refused to believe that it was his own tenant. And I was like, listen, it ain't rocket science, you know. I said, this is what I'd suggest that you do. Do not replace the pipes with copper again. It's expensive. Instead, have it replaced with PEX. It's cheap. It's worthless. They won't steal it or damage your plumbing anymore. And that's a tip that you should give them, especially if they've had the copper stolen more than once.
PEX, as it's reliable and quick to install. So, back to before's question, how does one get water if there's no municipal services? In rural areas, people use wells. A well is basically a hole that's drilled approximately 500 feet in the ground to access groundwater via pumping.
Or more, depending on the depth, however long it takes to get to the water.
This water is pumped back up and goes through a series of apparatuses to make the water drinkable. A downside to this is if the electricity cuts out, you'll need a generator to get a glass of water. And the last aspect is rainwater management. In the past, rainwater and sewage was combined.
It still is in a lot of areas. Here in New Jersey, we have not separated all of our systems. We're just starting to do that now. So some areas it has been separated, some areas it has not.
Meaning the rainwater went into the same sewer as the waste from your house. Since then, they've been separated to make water management easier.
Because then that's all that extra water then has to go to the treatment plants to get processed. So the rainwater does not need to get processed and going through water treatment. Instead, they could just have it go back out to the ocean because it's basically clean water. But if you mix it with the waste, the waste needs to be treated. But the thing is, if we combine it and we send way too much water and liquids to be treated to a waste treatment plant and it can't handle everything, it's going to just dump everything out into the reservoirs and the lakes and stuff like that, the rivers, that is even untreated.
So, when it rains, all of this water has to go somewhere, right? The rain that falls on the house's roof trickles into the gutters. Now, the gutter's job is to divert the water away from the house to prevent water infiltrations. So, what most people do is install a 5-foot piece onto the downspout so the water has somewhere to go, which is perfectly fine. Other people prefer recovering this water in barrels to use as non-potable water to water their plants and flowers, and some actually connect them to the weeping tile or French drain. The French drain is the corrugated pipe that runs around the house's footing to catch any excess water in the ground. The problem when doing this is that the municipal drain could get overloaded very quickly and overflow. So it's best to invest in a rainwater collection system or to just let the soil absorb the water if possible. So where does all of this waste and rainwater go once it's in the municipality's hands? Both of these services head down the road, which eventually need to be lifted at a lifting station, which pumps the storm and wastewaters back up so they don't go too deep. The rainwater dumps itself into a nearby river, and the waste continues to the sewage treatment plant where it passes through multiple filters and treatment stages to then be released back into the nearest river, and the cycle continues. The water from the river is filtered and pumped back into the city's main as potable water, which is safe to drink. And that's basically how your plumbing system works. I hope this video...
There you go. So there you go. You're drinking your sewer water after it's been treated. Not always, though. That's just one example of it. There are different areas where we get our water from. Sometimes it's reservoirs. Sometimes it's underground streams and such, where depending where the water company gets their water from that we saw in the previous, I think one of the first videos there. This talks about the P-traps under your sink.
If you notice a lot of extra piping under your sink, then you're looking at the P-trap. P-traps are named after their shape. They use a small bend in the pipe to trap water, creating a seal. This trap seal prevents sewer gases and odors from leaking into your home. As water drains through the P-trap, air is pulled from an outside vent to equalize the pressure. Now, if the vent is blocked by snow, ice, or debris, then the trap seal could be sucked out with the draining water. When this happens, you might hear a gurgling sound as air is pulled through the sink drain, and you might start to smell sewage coming out of that sink. Without access to outside air, the vacuum in the system might pull air from another plumbing fixture. For example, flushing the toilet could pull air from the sink, removing the water from the trap. So if you smell sewage out of the sink drain after flushing, this could be a sign of a larger ventilation issue. S-traps are similar to P-traps, but are no longer installed in homes because they have the potential to lose the trap seal. If enough water travels through an S-trap, it will create a continuous channel through the pipe and will siphon the water out of the trap. Fortunately, an S-trap can be retrofitted into a P-trap by adding a trap arm with proper access to an air vent. Additionally, a buildup of waste can also create problems. Strands of fabric and hair along the pipe can cause water to slowly leak out of the trap through capillary action. This is why it's important to keep the P-trap clear of debris.
And that's how the P-traps work. You know what? I think that there was one video in there that we kind of skipped that was about how the where the water comes from. That was we had two actual videos about where water comes from. Let me just check on something really quick.
Named up a few times.
Yeah, we did. Okay, so let me pull that one up. Then we'll get back to this point here. Just give me one sec. Pull that back up now. Or did we see this? I don't know. Let me take a look.
Nature. You know what they do, right?
Yeah, we did. We did see that. Never mind. Let me skip through these then. Saw that. We saw the P-trap. Saw that. Now, here's a concern that a lot of people don't even think of, but I throw it in there for you just for the heck of it. You know, when's the last time you cleaned the shower head in your shower? You know, there's also another video that I had that I never put in these that dealt with water towers. You know, if you're in a high-rise building that has a lot of stories to it, how do you get water under pressure to your apartments? If you ever notice, like in New York City or any place that has a lot of high-rise buildings, apartments, they have water towers on the roof. They collect the water, and it kind of works like the water towers that the water company has. So this way, on demand, you know, they do have pumps that pump the water up into it. But then when it's in demand, the water just comes out of those water tanks and drops it into the you know, into your faucet, you know. But there's a lot of laws that say that the owners of these buildings are supposed to drain them at least once a year. I know that's the case in New York. I would assume it's the same in New Jersey. That's required to get rid of any bacteria, deadly bacteria that could accumulate in there. You know, Legionnaire's disease and things of that nature can occur. But it's amazing, even though that's the requirement that they just drain it once a year, a lot of the owners of these buildings never do it, which could lead to heavy fines, but it's amazing that they don't.
When's the last time you cleaned your shower head? Like took it apart and cleaned it? Well, when you see...
When's the last time you cleaned your shower head, guys?
What Inside Edition discovered when we went looking inside shower heads, you just might make this your #1 cleaning priority. Here's Diane McInerney.
Taking a shower. It's something we all do just about every day. But you may be surprised to learn the awful truth that while you're getting clean, your shower head could be making you sick.
That's disgusting. I would never expect that.
The problem is the gook that may be lurking inside your shower head.
We're swabbing the shower head.
How bad is the problem? We took swabs from 11 different shower heads. It's a simple process. Unscrew the shower head and rub a sterile swab onto the shower heads and into the pipes. Next, we sent the swabs to Virginia Tech University. Top microbiologist Joseph Falkingham oversaw the testing.
Were you surprised by our results?
Yes, I was. There's some very high numbers that worry me.
Now it's time to reveal what we found.
Are you ready? Yes, let's do it.
First up, Renee Diaz, a mother of 2 from Manhattan.
Here's what we found. Fungus on the shower head, and that wasn't the worst of it. We also found it loaded with bacteria called mycobacteria that can cause lung infections.
Oh my God.
Pretty scary.
Oh my God, that's really scary and bad. I have kids.
Oh my God, what?
This mom, Lara Alcantara, had the same reaction when she
Bit of a
was
drama
informed
queen.
her shower head had fungus and was loaded with mycobacteria.
I mean, I'm a pretty clean person. I would have never thought that there would be fungus or any other crazy bacteria in my shower head.
Both moms wanted to know what to do next.
How do you fix it? Like, how do you get rid of that?
That is gross. So how do we clean it?
Here's what you can do. Soak your shower head in undiluted bleach for 30 minutes once a month, and then thoroughly rinse it off.
And if you do that once a month, the number of mycobacteria are very low.
Ugh.
About 30,000 mycobacteria infections are diagnosed every year. When's the
Stuff you never thought about or probably ever cared about. but we don't got to worry about that for our clients. I was just showing that for your own edification.
For many
Okay, but
For many people in the world, they get their water supplied to them through a central supply system that feeds to their pipes in their house or apartment.
okay, but where do you get it when you're not getting the water from the water company? I know we have some people in here, right, that you're on well water and septic systems. You're not tied into maybe the city system. Well, where do you get your water from?
However, for the rest of the world not hooked up to centralized water, they get their water through private or public wells.
Now, you're probably not dropping a chain with a bucket on there to get your water, you know. You probably have a pump down there that's pumping up that water into your house. But remember, the Private Well Testing Act states that any wells any houses where the primary source of potable water comes from a well, that well water needs to be tested, and both parties need to sign off that they received a copy of the test results. Otherwise, the contract's not legally binding, whether it's for sale or a lease.
Wells are some of the most essential components to developing a sustainable society. They provide a clean and reliable supply of water for drinking, bathing, and irrigation, even in locations where water on the surface is scarce. Wells are essentially just holes in the ground filled with water, but they have more complexities than meets the eye. Let's take a closer look at how wells work. Wells historically have been dug by hand. They essentially are just holes in the ground whose depth goes below the water table. The water table is the level of groundwater below the surface. Nearly everywhere on Earth has a water table below the surface, but in some places it's a few feet, and in others it's a few hundred or even thousands of feet. The water table isn't just an underground open lake, though. It's dirt and rock like everywhere else, except the groundwater fills the space in between the particles. In days of old, workers would just dig a hole until the hole started filling up with water. As long as the hole depth stayed below the water table depth, the hole would continuously fill with water. Many wells in remote places are still dug by hand, but now most are dug by drilling machines that can create much more uniform and far deeper wells. All of that said, let's dive into the few different types of wells in a little bit more detail. First, there's the dug wells, like what we mentioned before, and these are typically dug with shovels or simple hand tools. They'll only be possible in places with high water tables and soft ground. Once a digger reaches the water table, the hole is typically lined with stone to stabilize it. These wells typically can't be much deeper than the water table itself, as you can't dig past the water table with a shovel. The hole will just keep filling in. This is the same phenomenon you've likely experienced digging a hole in the sand at the beach. The next type of wells are driven wells. These are wells made from small diameter pipes which are driven into soft ground. These pipes typically have screens at their bottom to filter out sand and particulate matter, and can be effective, quick, and simple ways to make a well. However, they do have some drawbacks. They can really only reach shallow water, and contamination from the surface can easily occur. The last type of wells are drilled wells, which are likely the most common type of wells today, but they're also the most complicated and expensive to make. They are drilled using massive rigs which can go through all types of earth. These wells are typically very deep, upwards of 1,000 feet, and are used to reach very deep water reserves. Now that we've gone through the different types of wells, let's learn a little bit more about how they actually function. Wells fill up based on the groundwater level, like we mentioned before. Once you take water from the well, water from the surrounding groundwater slowly starts to fill the well up again. The rate of this refilling has to do with how much groundwater surrounds the well and the size of the particles in the ground, among a few other factors. If the particle space is large, the water will fill faster. If the well is fine clay, then the well will take a while to refill. For most wells, a pump is placed into the well to suck out the water. When water is pumped out and the surrounding water tries to refill the well, something called, and what is my favorite term in engineering, the cone of depression forms. The cone of depression is not what you wear when you're feeling a little bit sad. It's actually a conical depression in the water table that can extend far beyond the well itself. In fact, if a high flow rate well is installed too close to another well, the first well's cone of depression can draw the surrounding water table down so far that the neighboring well no longer works. There are formulas engineers use to calculate and model cones of depression when designing wells, which is crucial to make sure your well doesn't adversely affect anything else in the surrounding region. It's also crucial to make sure that your well doesn't overpump the water table. If you suck too much water from the ground, eventually the ground can compact and the water table will drop permanently. This settling can cause the ground elevation at the surface to go down, in some cases many hundreds of feet over years of well pumping. This has occurred in regions of the US, like in California and towards the West Coast.
Wow. Do you guys understand what he's saying right here? Take a look at this image right here, where they have well water that they keep pumping out. You get the environmentalists that keep telling you how the sea levels are rising. Another aspect that you could look at it is perhaps the ground level is sinking. And this is proof right here. Here is a telephone pole that has a date 1925. This is when the ground level was up here. And then from over pumping the water out of these wells, instead of having desalination plants or using the water that comes from mountains because you don't want to disturb some endangered fish like Gavin Newsom has done, which led to water shortages not being available to extinguish their fires over there. Over time, look, boom, then in 1955, the ground level was here. And then 1977, and when this picture was taken, the ground level is now down here. You know, it's amazing how the ground level just keeps dropping because they keep pumping the water.
While there are
You could think of the ground kind of like a sponge. Sponge is easy to compress, you know. It's got all those gaps in between. But if you fill it with water, it holds it up. However, it's kind of like the same way that sinkholes work. You guys ever hear of sinkholes? You ever see on the news those instances where a house got swallowed up by a sinkhole? There was a rumbling, and then all of a sudden the bedroom of the house sunk into the ground. You know, we hear of these things a lot in areas like Florida, maybe even Pennsylvania, areas where they have mining operations or just a lot of water, and they have a Swiss cheese geology where the ground underneath has some of that soft limestone. However, when they get a lot of rain or water, limestone is the softest rock and it gets worn away by the water. So now if that water level should dry up because of a drought or what have you, they don't see water for a while, it leaves a big hole under the ground and weakens the ground because now the surface is not supported by the water in that hole. And then we have these huge sinkholes that occur and they drop out. And that's kind of what happens with the land and why the land sinks like this too.
A plethora of public wells that supply water for entire cities. Let's focus on private wells to understand a bit more about what goes into them. Many people across the world supply their own water through private wells. These wells will be drilled near their dwelling and will have a screen at the bottom to filter out grit, a submersible pump placed at the bottom of the well, along with electrical wiring to power the pump. There will typically be a tank above ground that pressurizes the water, giving your house pressurized water to use in sinks, faucets, toilets, and showers. It's really as simple as that. The main components of wells are the well casing, which is a solid tube structure of the well cap, which is a cover of the well placed at the surface to keep animals or debris from falling in and contaminating the well. There's well screens, which are placed at the bottom of the well to keep sediment out and keep the well from filling up with dirt. Then there are pumps. Jet pumps are the most common pumps for private wells mounted above ground, which use suction to draw the water up. However, if a well is deeper than about 25 to 45 feet, a submersible pump will be needed. At these depths, the pressure required to pump water up this height is far too much for most above ground pumps. Submersible pumps are used for deep wells and are placed at the bottom of the well. And that just about covers it. Wells are crucial to civilization, but require a number of technical factors to be considered when creating and designing them. This video is primarily focused on the basics of wells, but there are some more technical concepts that we skipped over. Things like aquifers, waterhead, calculating flow rates, water volume, and other uses for wells beyond purely water collection, to name a few. Hopefully, though, this was enough to give you a good introduction to the science and engineering of water wells.
All right, and then this is something that I know some people in this class, they deal with well water. There's something that you have to possibly have, even though you may live out in the country, in the western part of the state. It seems like it's beautiful, pristine area, but you know the water may not be as safe as you think.
Well, we can test the water every year.
What's that?
Sorry. We test the water every year, and this is one of the best. Like so far, they have just too much salt. That's the only thing that they have, but it's okay.
Okay. Well,
my other friend that is like a two, maybe close to on the other line, the other side. She has to change for the city water.
She has what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
She changed the water to city water because her well water was bad.
Yeah, and this is why you got to test your water too, because if you watch this video is going to talk about arsenic, and this is a thing that we have to deal with because the cutting through the north central part of the state of New Jersey, we have this Piedmont section of shale, and because of that. The water could possibly get introduced. Well, you could see right here. I'll let the video explain it.
Environmental problem in the world today. Often we think of water pollution as caused by human activities, as was the case for the recent water crisis in Flint, Michigan. But is all water pollution caused by humans? Not always. For example, groundwater contamination by arsenic is a natural occurring process and is becoming a worldwide environmental issue. In South and Southeast Asia alone, more than 100 million people are exposed to arsenic-contaminated groundwater, leading to severe health problems including cancer and skin disease.
Arsenic is a chemical element that is often found naturally in minerals. If you drop a rock containing arsenic into a cup of pure water, odds are not much will happen because most forms of the mineral are not soluble in water alone. However, if we add the right mix of microbial organisms and organic carbon into this cup and take out the oxygen, the mineral will break down and release arsenic into the water. Even though all this is happening naturally, human activities such as well drilling and irrigation can change the groundwater flow pattern and introduce more organic carbon that will further facilitate the arsenic release process. If your well water turns out to be contaminated, there are a few options to regain potable water in your household. The first option is to join a public water supply system. The second option is to install an arsenic filter for your well. The last option is to drill or switch to a new well that is more likely to produce arsenic-free groundwater. In less developed countries, the last option is often preferred due to the absence of a public water supply system or effective water monitoring and treatment equipment.
Today, international science communities such as MIT have built many study sites in arsenic-affected regions. The research effort has also motivated programs that are in place to help affected populations regain clean drinking water.
And the New Jersey Mortgage Housing and Finance Agency, or New Jersey Housing Mortgage Finance Agency, they actually provide interest-free loans for homeowners who want to install water filtration systems in their house. Here's a link to where you could get some more info on that. But that's through the HMFA, the New Jersey Housing Mortgage Finance Agency. They offer interest-free loans. I think it's up to $10,000 to get a water filtration system installed in your house. Here's one video, one of many videos they have on their website. I'm only going to play this one from you for you, but they have many videos on their website that explain these issues and the problems. On this one page, I think they got about 4 of them that are very interesting to watch.
So you found out you have unhealthy levels of naturally occurring arsenic in your well water. Unfortunately, northern New Jersey groundwater is especially vulnerable to arsenic contamination. There are 2 types of arsenic to watch out for, arsenic 3 and arsenic 5. The most effective treatment methods remove both types of arsenic. Installing any of these systems into your home can be an easy and affordable investment in the health of your family and the value of your home. In this video, we will explain 2 effective treatment systems and how to maintain them in order to keep this toxin out of your home. Whichever system you choose, be sure to test annually to help determine if treatment units need replacement. The point of entry system treats high levels of arsenic in your water through a tank system installed in your basement.
All right, let me stop right here for a second. The point of entry system. What you're seeing right here, this is a... let me pause at the right spot.
The point of entry system treats high levels of arsenic in your water through...
This right here is a well cap for those driven wells where they drill a hole deep in the ground and then they submerge a pump down there. This is the cap that's bolted on that prevents animals or debris from falling into that well. So the water gets pumped up from here through here, and then there's pipes that go to the house where that water goes into the house. And you can't really see it from this angle that much, but there's also a little area here where the wires and cables for the electric wires go down there to feed that pump. Okay, now they refer to this as the point of entry water treatment system because it treats all the water that enters the house. And then you also have point of use systems. We actually have in our contracts paragraphs that talk about POE or point of entry systems. Just know that that has to deal with well water and filtration systems filtering out the water as it comes into the house. So all the water gets filtered.
And treats high levels of arsenic in your water through a tank system installed in your basement. It is the most effective in reducing overall exposure to arsenic. The primary benefit of the whole house treatment is eliminating the risk of drinking arsenic-contaminated water from untreated faucets, and it also prevents arsenic exposure from other water uses such as bathing and brushing teeth. This is especially important if you have young children who may not consistently use water from a single source.
And in this case, you're looking at a larger filter, several feet in height, and it's traditional to the same type of tanks that are used for people to use in their house for softening the water. So we're using the same type of apparatus, and we put the media into those tanks, and then there's a valve that is placed on top of that tank that operates the system and makes sure that the homeowner has the easiest operation to handle.
The system is comprised of 2 tanks, each that contain ferric oxide media, granular ferric oxide. The first is the worker tank that takes care of the majority of the arsenic as it comes in, and the second is the safety tank that will gather any arsenic that may make it through this. This does the primary job, and again, this polishes that water.
The installation process takes only a few hours, and maintenance is simple. Though the installation cost for the point of entry system is the most expensive, the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency offers interest-free loans to help you cover the cost. The media inside of the tanks only needs to be replaced every few years, leaving the average maintenance cost to be less than $1 a day. Point of use systems use under-sink cartridges to remove arsenic. The system provides treated water for drinking and cooking use from one tap only, usually the kitchen sink. Maintenance is very important to ensure that the filter continues to work and generally only requires changing the cartridge once a year. That being said, this point-of-use system does not protect your family when they are drinking from other taps that provide water for bathing, showering, and brushing teeth.
When we found out that the water in our home is contaminated with arsenic, we decided that the point-of-entry system would be the best option for us. Now, my husband and I generally drink from the kitchen tap, but we were worried with having a small child at home that she might be drinking from other faucets in the house that would be untreated. Now, the only downside to the point-of-entry system really is the initial cost. But luckily, there are no-interest loans available from the state, so we didn't have to wait until we had that extra money available in order to start treating our home immediately. When we got the treatment system installed, we were told that both testing and maintenance are both really important. Once a year, we'll go down to the basement and we'll check the water between the two treatment tanks, and then we'll also check the water at the kitchen tap. We'll call up our treatment company whenever we need help changing out the sediment filters, or every few years when we have to replace the tanks. So we understand that the treatment medium doesn't last forever. All in all though, we are able to treat all of the water in our home with an average long-term maintenance cost of about $1 a day.
You've already tested your water and found it to have high levels of arsenic. The next step is to find a treatment system that fits the needs of your home. Installing a system is easy, affordable, and will increase the value of your home. There are several questions you should ask your treatment professional about the system they will be installing to ensure that you get the right fit for your home. Make sure the system you are having installed treats both arsenic 3 and arsenic 5. Ensure that you are clear on the required maintenance of your system. Ask the treatment professional what options they have for reminding you about scheduled maintenance, and see if they can leave a testing kit at your home after they install the system. Ask your treatment professional if your water has been tested for other contaminants. If your water does have significant traces of other minerals, ask how you can remedy these issues to ensure both higher water quality and a longer lifespan for your treatment system. Check that the volume of water the treatment system processes is enough to meet the needs of your family. To protect yourselves and the ones you love from the harmful effects of arsenic, it's crucial to not only install a treatment system, but to maintain it as well. Be sure to test your water annually, even after you've begun using your system, to make sure your system is still working. To get more information about how to have these treatment systems installed in your home, please visit our website by Googling the New Jersey Arsenic Awareness Initiative. Once there, you'll find resources you need to protect your home, including 0% interest financing options offered by the state of New Jersey. Check the treatment options page for treatment professionals near you. Use the checklist to remind you what questions to ask when considering which system to install. A cost survey summary shows the range of installation costs you may find, and see the frequently asked questions for other questions you may have. By ridding your house of arsenic with a treatment system, you'll have peace of mind knowing that you have clean, safe water for your family to use.
All right, so now here's what to do about lead water. Lead in your water, lead in your pipes. I actually just posted something about this, a new video on the on our Facebook page. American Water just came out with a new campaign about this, that if you have lead pipes in your house, that they will actually replace them for you free of charge. Let me see if I could open up that and show that to you as well. Let me see. I'd have to go to Facebook. Give me 1 second here. Reader Path Academy. So if we go to our Facebook page, which by the way, you should go there, like it, love it. If you haven't yet, here's the link. All right. If you go there, where is it? Here we go.
Great. The new GoDaddy Aero has AI mark.
I'll be showing you after this commercial here. There you go.
If it scratches or if it sticks, just tell us and we can fix.
With a simple test, you can see if your water service pipe is made of lead or galvanized steel.
Take the test.
It's easy. It's fast.
Leave those old pipes in the
Test your water service line for lead and we'll replace it at no additional cost. Learn more at outwiththeoldpipes.com.
All right, so I guess that was a pretty quick one. All right, there's another one that we have here on our slideshow. The legislation that requires that.
At New Jersey American Water, our business is water. One question we're often asked is there lead in my drinking water? Lead is not naturally found in drinking water. However, lead is sometimes detected in water from older homes and businesses built before 1986, when the Environmental Protection Agency banned the use of lead plumbing. We treat, sample, and closely monitor our water at various points throughout the system to ensure our water complies with all state and federal regulations. While the water coming into your home does not contain lead, if you have lead pipes, your risk of potential exposure to lead increases when the water sits unused for several hours. You can also reduce your potential risk of lead exposure by letting your cold water run for 30 seconds to 2 minutes before drinking or cooking. Water quality and customer safety have always been top priorities here at New Jersey American Water. And with such high quality, strictly regulated, and safely treated water available at your tap, why waste money on bottled water? Learn more about lead and the quality of your drinking water at newjerseyamwater.com/leadfacts.
Now here's a tool that the legislation required them to use. I'm going to pull up this tool and I'm going to share this link with you in a moment. But let's first see about it and how it works.
At New Jersey American Water, providing safe, reliable water service is our top priority. The state of New Jersey is now requiring all water providers to share with customers the material of the water service lines leading to their properties, if known. It also requires water utilities to replace all utility-owned and customer-owned lead and galvanized service lines within the next 10 years. If your service lines are lead or galvanized, it does not mean you cannot use water as you normally do. The water provided to you by New Jersey American Water meets state and federal water quality standards, including those for lead. So, how do you know if your service lines are lead or galvanized? You can visit our new interactive webpage and map to learn more at newjerseyamwater.com/leadfacts. Here, customers can enter their address to learn what their service line material is. Simply click on the map, agree to the terms and conditions, and hit OK. Then click on the Find Address field and enter the address. The map will zoom in on the address and show the service line material on the utility and customer side. If your customer-owned side is identified as unknown or you believe it is not accurately identified, we invite you to help identify it and report that information to us. Follow the directions provided, upload a photo, and submit. Below the map, you'll find more information and resources. Click on Our Approach to learn about the steps we take to meet standards for water quality. Click on Assess and Reduce Exposure to learn how you can reduce the potential risk of lead exposure. The FAQ provides additional information and answers to many questions. If the answers to your questions are not found on our webpage, you can ask us directly by completing the Contact Us form or emailing us at leadfreenj@amwater.com.
All right, so this the link for this. So the link for this, I'll share with you here. This is the link to the tool that I'm sharing with you right now. This is in the ClassLinks Word document, like all the other things that I shared with you. But here's the American Water website. That link that's on the slideshow there has the videos that explain how to test your pipes to see what kind of what kind of pipes they are and all that. But either way, all these lead and galvanized steel pipes need to be replaced by the year 2031. And they have to notify customers of the types of pipes that they have. So they put this tool in place here. And if we were to click over here, just like the video showed, click on I agree and OK. And then you could plug in your address here. Over here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in my zip code, 07036 for my town of Linden. And okay, so I zoom out on the town, just a random area anywhere in the town here, and you could see there's all these circles that some of them are white on both sides. These are all the buildings, all the properties in town, and all the service lines. You could see, I guess some of these are multi-families because I see multiple service lines to the same houses. But if you see blue, or if it's white, they don't know what kind of service line is there. Here, let's look at the legend. White means first of all, the left-hand side of the circle, that's the service line that comes into the house from the water company. The right side is the material of the pipes that are on the inside of the house. If it's white, then they don't know. Okay, it's unknown. Galvanized steel should be replaced. That's that pinkish color there, or orange. If it's not lead, then it'll be blue. That's good. Or if it's black, that's lead. So as you can see, some of them have blue from the water company, but inside of the house is lead. You're looking for that black on the left-hand side, or orange or pink, for the galvanized, like this building right here has it. But you can see, like, one service line may have it, the other service line may not. This looks like it may be an apartment building or something. I'm not sure. Let me back this up a bit, move around, get closer to my neighborhood over here. And you can see there doesn't appear to be much lead, if any, in my neighborhood, but there are some around it. There are some houses that have it. The service lines leading to the house are lead. Very few of them, though. But there are a couple houses that have lead in the house. And how do you know that? Because you could do the scratch test, take a picture of your service line in your house by your water meter, and then send it into the water company, and they'll tell you what it is. But you could pretty much tell on your own as well, because if we just go back to their regular website here, that link that I sent you, here's a video that they show you how to test and see what kind of service line
At New Jersey American Water,
that service line is.
drinking water quality is our top priority. That's why we're committed to replacing all lead and galvanized service lines by 2031. To do this, we need your help identifying the material of your service line. It may be made of brass, copper, lead, galvanized steel, or PVC plastic. First, locate your service line. It will be near your main water shutoff valve, typically located in your basement, garage, or crawl space.
Where the pipes
Next,
come in.
there are two
through the
simple
wall.
tests you can do yourself to identify the material. When you conduct these tests, be sure to look at the section of pipe between the shutoff valve and the wall. For the first test, you will need a magnet, like one from your refrigerator. Put the magnet on the pipe between the wall and valve. If it sticks, your pipe is galvanized steel. A magnet will not stick to lead, copper, brass, or PVC. If the magnet doesn't stick, then you can move on to the second test. Grab a coin or a key and carefully scratch the pipe between the wall and the valve. Lead will scratch easily, revealing shiny silver color beneath. If your pipe reveals a copper or golden color when scratched, it is likely made of copper or brass. If the pipe is plastic, it will most likely be black, white, or blue. Be sure the pipe is not painted when identifying the pipe type. Once you have identified the type of pipe, snap a picture of it. If you perform the scratch test, please include the mark in your photo. Then visit NewJerseyAMWater.com/leadfacts. Search your address on the map and submit your photo. Thank you for your help in identifying or confirming the material of your service line. Learn more about our program online.
New Jersey American Water.com/leadfacts. Or you could use that link that I just sent you that brings you to this page here that has the video that tells you about the problem, the link that takes you to the search, this video that I just showed you about how to identify your pipes. And then they got all of these resources here for more information or to contact them. All right. Now, underground storage tanks, or USTs, underground storage tanks, or USTs, when no longer used, they need to be decommissioned, emptied, and filled with an approved aggregate, or completely removed from the ground itself, and the soil needs to be tested by an EPA certified company. Now, anytime the EPA is involved, if a state has their own environmental agency, like we do here in New Jersey, we have the NJDEP, Department of Environmental Protection. They usually allow them to take over their duties so they don't have to waste their time here. So to ensure that no contaminants have leaked out, they need to test that soil. Now, other materials that we store underground in storage tanks could be human waste, the sewage, the septic, oil, gas, diesel fuel, dry cleaners, chemicals. There's hundreds of materials that we could store underground when you think about commercial uses that they store underground in tanks. Go to a gas station. They got gas, they got diesel. They may have even, what do you call it? Gaseous gas, not liquefied gas, propane, other things as well. So there's a little series here, Toxic America, or Toxic New Jersey. Here's a picture of a big oil tank taken out of the ground from this house. Now, you need to test these to see basically when they're not taking it out of the ground, which it's weird that it actually costs less to keep the tanks in the ground, but cut a hole through it and clean it out and fill it, which is kind of odd. But you'd figure that'd be better to remove it completely and then clean it, and then what do you call it? Remove the soil, test the soil, and then remove the soil, replace it with good, clean soil. But here, we'll have a two-part series here explaining to you the dangers with this. There's some grant money that's available, but you're going to see the views from politicians who are on that push for environmental protection, and that environmental protection often includes, it's your responsibility as the property owner, it's your property. They put the responsibility, they put the onus on you to make sure that your property is not contaminating the environment. So politicians just create the law out of thin air all of a sudden because, hey, we want to save the environment. Now all of a sudden they want to be these environmentalist heroes, but they're going to put the onus on you to bear the expense to do the cleanup on it. Boom. It was never a rule before how it was going to be dealt with. And now they also want to try to point fingers at the homeowners insurance company. But homeowners insurance was never meant to be an toxic environmental cleanup plan, or fund. So, that is not right or fair either by putting that responsibility on the insurance companies either. If the state wants to decide they want to take on this thing that they want to become these environmental heroes, well then how about you work out the details of it too? Don't just put it on everybody else to as a responsibility, because putting that on homeowners is not fair either. That could have been installed in their way before they ever bought the house. Let's look at some of the issues that come up with this, because this is a big one in real estate, guys.
So today's the day. I've got my RTA.
All right, good for you, buddy. Let's see. Skip that ad.
If there's not an old oil tank corroding beneath your backyard, chances are good there's one in your neighborhood, and insurance won't necessarily cover the astronomical cost of removing it. Tonight, the second installment of our three-part investigation into a danger beneath the soil. It's a collaboration with a dozen content partners, public radio stations and private news organizations, both Rutgers and Montclair State University, facilitated by the Center for Investigative Reporting. Brenda Flanagan investigates Toxic New Jersey.
It's caked in clay, but looks solid enough as the backhoe gently hoists Joan Fitzgerald's 500-gallon fuel oil tank out of the ground and into the air and deposits it on her front lawn in Clifton. But back in the excavated hole, dark residue stains the dirt, and the odor of petroleum's heavy above the pit.
I can smell it. And you can actually even see it if you look far down there.
Environmental consultant Steve Rich chops at the clay. Underneath, holes appear in the 66-year-old steel. Daylight shines through some that are big as dimes.
Those are big holes.
Yeah. There was, I think, unfortunately, quite a bit of oil which might have come out.
I don't know if I could talk to you right now, really. I'm upset. I've been upset all week, and now this puts the icing on the cake.
Joan's tank is only one of an estimated 100,000 fuel oil storage tanks buried underground across New Jersey, ranging in size from a couple hundred gallons to monsters holding thousands of gallons.
How often do you see something like this?
Quite a bit. Maybe 50% of the old tanks, they do have holes. They do leak. They've been in the ground a long time, that's why.
So it depends on the age of the houses, too. Because depending on the age of the house, if it was built during wartime, those tanks may be thinner because they needed the metal more for creating ships and tanks and things of that nature. So those tanks were even thinner.
Serious cases where plumes of contamination ride groundwater channels far beyond the tank pits require extreme excavation.
It was pretty bad, as you could see.
You see this? They jacked up the house and they put it on pillars.
The house had to be put on piles and beams to remediate the soil.
He figures cleanup will run a couple $100,000. Insurance might cover half. The DEP's notified whenever a critical level of contamination is detected and gets a technical report when it's remediated. Homeowners then get a letter certifying cleanup's complete, and they can't sell the property without it, he says, because banks won't offer mortgages on homes with underground oil tanks. The grant money New Jersey set aside to help compensate homeowners for fuel oil tank removal can't keep up with demand, with a waiting list 1,700 names and 4 years long. So
Some are waiting in and out, and some are walking away from their homes.
Walking away.
They walk away from their homes. They just don't have the equity in the property to ultimately pay for remediation and get it cleaned up.
And they're really like the Wild West. You know, you just have these tanks out there that invariably at some point in time are going to leak.
Environmental attorney Stu Lieberman points to New Jersey's 2005 fuel oil tank exclusion policy. It lets insurers opt out of paying for damages from tank removal unless homeowners can prove that oil leaked before 2005.
It's a sin. It's really a crime that the Division of Banking and Insurance allowed the insurance companies in New Jersey to stop covering these things.
The upshot is that there are many homeowners that don't have coverage and don't know that they don't have coverage.
New Jersey's Fuel Merchants Association questions whether lack of DEP oversight on oil tank removals is driving up costs, especially if an insurer is picking up part of the bill to fix those oil leaks that occurred more than a decade ago.
The costs just seem to be a lot more in the insurance world than they might otherwise need to be.
The costs that they sometimes incur for these remediations, it's really a market-driven process. And that's why the costs become so extensive in some cases.
In other words, it shouldn't be so damn expensive to dig a hole, pull a tank out, drain a tank and pull it out of the ground. Or to dig up the dirt and replace the dirt. But sometimes the DEP, these environmental agencies, make it more expensive because of their requirements that they put on there of liability.
The DEP says regulations permit industrial cleanups to leave behind small amounts of contaminants in the soil. But for home sites, banks and buyers demand much more stringent remediation standards.
Now that doesn't seem right, does it? That commercial sites are allowed to leave some contamination in the ground, but for private homeowners, you're not allowed to have any?
No ability to obtain a permit to leave any contamination behind.
To help save cleanup costs, the DEP is now considering a controversial fix to relax some cleanup regulations for homeowner tanks of less than 2,000 gallons. Meanwhile, Senator Jennifer Beck's sponsoring legislation that would require insurance companies to start offering fuel oil tank liability policies to homeowners again.
If they don't want it, they have to sign and certify a letter back to the insurer that they don't want it. Otherwise, the homeowner's insurance company must provide it automatically.
Homeowner's insurance was intended to be there for the structure and for your belongings inside. It wasn't there to be a hazardous waste plan.
The insurance lobby says those policy changes and oil tank exclusions were very clear, and insurers do not want to walk it all back a decade later.
At the heart of this, it's an environmental issue. It's an issue of maintenance, it's an issue of warranty, and it's an issue of making sure that you've replaced these tanks.
Back in Clifton, Joan Fitzgerald just heard cleanup will cost $75,000 to remove 125 tons of contaminated dirt. But she says she unwittingly made a mistake by converting to natural gas heat before she removed the oil tank, and that voided her insurance policy.
Do you think State Farm is going to help pay for it?
No.
Why not?
Because I just don't think they will. Yeah.
State Farm told NJTV News that it's actively working with Ms. Fitzgerald about her claim. Now, across New Jersey, underground storage tanks and contaminated soils from old gas stations and dry cleaners lurk underground. You might be living right next to one and not even know it. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. In the newsroom, I'm Brenda Flanagan, NJTV News.
All right. Now let's take a look at that next one.
Attention retirees, if you're willing to be at your computer.
Yeah.
New Jersey's toxic legacy doesn't just reside in its many Superfund sites. It also lies in thousands of underground oil and gas tanks, growing more corroded by the year, leaking toxic materials into the ground beneath gas stations and backyards up and down the state. Tonight we begin a three-part investigation into a danger beneath the soil. It's a collaboration with a dozen content partners, public radio stations, and private news organizations, both Rutgers and Montclair State University, all facilitated by the Center for Investigative Reporting. Brenda Flanagan investigates toxic New Jersey.
It was something out of a fantasy dream, like a nightmare almost, but it was really happening.
Elliot Zygmunt's lived with a fuel oil tank nightmare for 6 long years. His yard on Larch Avenue in suburban Teaneck is pocked with test wells that monitor contaminants still flowing in the groundwater beneath his property, despite cleanup costs now pushing $600,000. The oil leaked from an old fuel tank once buried in his side yard.
We wanted the tank out of the ground. My oil service company told me it was a ticking time bomb. Even before they got the tank out of the ground, they smelled and saw oil. They saw holes in the tank. It was bad.
And it got much worse. After the contractors winched the tank up out of the ground in July 2009, they tested the soil and discovered serious contamination, a toxic plume of volatile organics that flowed beneath his neighbor's home as well.
In the first couple of years of this was really my house, my property. Their property was a construction zone.
What did your neighbors say? How did they react?
Not well. They didn't take it well.
I was so angry, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Neighbor Inez Solomon says she watched in frustration as workers jacked up Zygmunt's house and excavated 250 tons of tainted soil between their two properties, the remediation prescribed by Triassic Technology, which was hired by his insurance company. They replaced it with clean fill. The result?
There's still oil?
Yeah, there's still oil.
That's why monitoring wells still pepper both his property and the Solomons, connected by specially heated conduits to a shed in Zygmunt's backyard. The conduits lead to a filter that removes any residual oil seeping from the water table into the monitoring wells.
This is basically a very sophisticated Big Brita. That's the way it was explained to me, a Big Brita filtration system.
The costly hookup hasn't logged 2 consecutive clean months in more than a year of filtering. Zygmunt's insurer has since hired a different company, Earthworks Environmental, to try a new technique, injecting the ground with hydrogen peroxide. That might cost another $100,000. Meanwhile, Zygmunt says his insurance company figures it's responsible for 82% of the estimated $600,000 bill. well. And with the special state fund that reimburses homeowners for fuel oil tank removal costs basically broke, that'd leave Elliot Zigman on the hook for maybe $100,000. His home's appraised at only $300,000.
The fact that they're looking to clean up the state environmentally on the backs of single-family homeowners is just patently absurd. These are expenses that no single family should be asked to endure.
Next door, the Solomons feel similarly trapped. Their insurance company's response?
Our company will not touch this.
So you're just stuck?
We're stuck. We can't sell the property. We've asked whether we can sell it. We cannot sell it until this has been resolved.
And both families want to know why they're ultimately responsible for what amounts to a toxic cleanup project with impossibly high environmental standards.
There's no supervision from the NJDEP. Never once in this 6-year period has a representative of the DEP come out here and looked at the property or told me the job is being done correctly, the job is being done incorrectly, we might have done it this way, we might, it's just you're on your own.
Zigman's contractor, Triassic Technology, called this case an unfortunate circumstance because the house sits on shallow bedrock, where the water table fluctuates between the rock and the soil. That makes it a difficult cleanup. There's a lot more testing that has to be done. It's quite a bit more expensive. He faces the same cleanup standards as a chemical factory.
You can always find a case that everything just doesn't work right.
Assistant Commissioner Mark Peterson revealed the DEP is now re-examining cleanup standards for underground heating oil tanks.
Homeowners wanted that, so they had a greater predictability of the environmental professional doing the work, and some environmental professionals wanted that also. So we're working on those regulations to revise them.
We feel so exhausted and burned out by this whole process. I'm 70 years old. I mean, I've done all the correct things in life. I've brought kids up. I've always been an honest person. I'm looking forward to, my golden years here, and all I'm doing is wondering whether I'm going to have to abandon my house someday.
NJTV News contacted the DEP about Elliot Zigman's case, and a member of the department was there at his home when peroxide treatments began. He's hoping for success by next summer. But Zigman's only one of tens of thousands of Jersey residents facing what some call a fuel oil tank epidemic. We'll have more on that tomorrow. In the newsroom, I'm Brenda Flanagan, NJTV.
So that's an issue that we got to deal with selling homes that have oil tanks in them. Anybody here have an oil tank in their house?
I do.
Have you had it inspected at all when you bought it?
Yes, we're still using it.
Oh, you haven't converted yet? Is it in the ground or is it in the basement?
It's in the basement. No, conversion is difficult because we are the only house on the street. So our neighbor who's like far away, he has the same issue, but we don't have issues with the oil tank or the water.
I'm just talking about the cost of it.
It cost $65,000 if you want to change for gas. We asked already.
Why so much? Is that because of them running?
Because we are far away from the line for the we are all the way in the bottom.
Yeah.
And so
it's not always a possibility to do. Yeah. And if it does, the cost could be astronomical when you're living out in the country or something. That's one thing that a lot of people don't realize. They try to put all these costs and rules and restrictions in place for people who have oil tanks. They want to penalize you. But the thing is, sometimes how else are you going to heat your house? Either you're going to be chopping down wood for the fireplace, or you could get propane delivered to your house. That's another option, but propane can be quite dangerous.
Yes.
Having a huge 600 gallon propane tank above the ground or even under the ground, you get a leak in one of those, they explode. That's like dynamite going off,
Yes, when we bought the house, the owner changed the septic tank, and she did the oil tank. So the oil tank is practically like new. She spent a lot of money changing and do everything.
But they put the new one in the ground still?
No, we put it in the basement out.
Oh, okay. I was about to say
so it's easy to see. It's easy to check.
Yeah.
And we just made a buzz around.
It is highly unlikely that it's going to leak. Okay, if they're in the basement, it's not going to leak. I mean, where's the water going to come from to rust it? The oil's not going to rust metal.
Yes.
If anything, it's going to prevent it from rusting. The thing is, when you have water from rain and everything that surround that tank and it's underground, water and metal, it rusts.
miss.
It creates those holes. And that's where the problems come about. So you really don't have much of an issue to worry about there then.
So far, no.
Other than your high heating costs.
Yes, we pay
when
more than we had to. The house is kind of big, so it's like every 2 or 3 months, like we're talking about $800 for the oil delivery.
Yep, I know it. Hey, listen, I had it too. I had the oil tank in my basement, and our furnace was always on the fritz. So I was like, you know what,
The only break you had is in summer. Use it.
Yeah. So what I did is I ran it until I used up all the oil. Okay. Once the oil was all used up, I had that gas furnace ready to get installed. So I did it myself too. I got out a Sawzall. I cut it open, made sure it was ventilated. I cut it open. I then drained it. I cleaned the inside out of any sludge.
Oh boy.
I poured Speedy Dry in there. It's kind of like what they use in auto shops for oil spills. It's kind of like kitty litter. It soaks up everything, but it's made for shops. It has super absorbency. That's how they clean up spills from accidents in the street that the fire department does, at emergency spots. So you use that to clean it up, put that in the bags, and then you take it to the dump site and they'll take it, they'll take those contaminants, which what they end up doing, ironically, is putting it in a dump in the ground anyway. Put it right back where it came from. Yeah, go figure, right? They'll fine you for it, but
yes,
okay for them to do it, Because what else you do?
Is very picky with that.
Yeah, but I tell you what, the savings. First of all, the headache of having to shop around for the best price in oil all the time, unless you get a contract, But I'd shop around because the price would vary, so I'd just shop around for it, and then you got to meet them to give them the check for the oil.
No, we have automatic payments.
Automatic payments, yeah.
Yes, we just call them when we need it before they get dry, because if it gets too dry, it's gonna get dirty into the heat system.
The garbage from on the bottom of the tank, and then it clogs the filters. I know. But I've been through it. But I tell you what, when I converted to gas, the savings was enormous. If you go from a couple of months with that $800 something bill to then having like a $45 heating bill.
I know. We had like yes, I know. These things.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you don't have that option because that's the cost prohibitive for you to get the utility companies to run gas lines.
I can buy that with investment. So we invest the money in apartments close to here in Regency Village.
Mm-hmm.
So it's better to invest the money. That's what I do in real estate because doing like a invest. So we bought 2 apartments and we put too much. And I know I'm gonna cry about it. We pay commissions, a lot of commission just for 2 apartments. So it's like, come on, I just get the real estate and we just save the part. I get the license.
Now you're getting a license to save on it yourself.
If I pass the test, man, this is hard.
No, you come on, you study, you'll pass. There'll be no problem there. Hopefully I'm doing a good job teaching you. Now it's just a matter of you studying it to remember everything,
Yes.
So don't worry about that. You pass, and you'll pass. Think positive. Power of positive thinking. The underground storage tanks, and you may have been already some of that issues then, but the rest of the class may have not. So here we go. You just got introduced, my friends. All right, so now septic, you're probably familiar with this as well. You had the people when you bought the house, they replaced the septic tank, but did they have a septic tank there to begin with? They may have had a cesspool or a tight tank, but legislation in New Jersey says that as of 2012, anytime you're going to sell one of these properties, before you could sell it, it must be replaced. You cannot leave a cesspool or tight tank in the ground. They must be replaced with septic systems or if you're not connecting to city sewer services, which I assume are not available to you as well, since the gas pipes aren't there. I'm pretty sure the the city sewers aren't either, right?
Yes.
All right, so basically that's all this is. You don't need to study anything here, but this is just something I make people aware of, especially if they live in areas like you and if you're practicing real estate in that area. You got to understand there's things called cesspools and tight tanks as well. You can look up what those things are on your own, but these need to be replaced by septic systems, which are more efficient.
And you had to have the maintenance and all kind of stuff.
But septic systems are way more efficient than okay, so a cesspool or tight tank sounds like what it is. It's a tank when it needs to be, you need to get the company to come out and suck it out. So the liquids, the solids, it fills up, it gets pumped out much more often. Cesspools, it's a little bit different than a septic system. I'm not exactly sure how they work, so I don't want to get into big stories of them. I never really came across them myself. But cesspools need to be updated with septic systems, which are much more efficient than them, and they require a lot of maintenance too, by the way. Here's basically your basic outline of a septic system and how it works with that picture. All the waste goes into it. Here's a two compartment septic tank. The solids go to the bottom, the sludge and the greases float to the top, and the effluent, which is the liquids, they stay in between and then go over through the wall through that pipe to the next one. And then you should have a filter over here. The liquids, every gallon of waste that comes in, 1 gallon of liquid should come out, and it comes out through these perforated holes into the ground. You shouldn't park any cars above them, plant any trees, do any construction above them to compact the soil, which kind of defeats the purpose because then it won't work properly in those drain fields. So here's a little video about how septic systems work for those who don't know what a septic system is. Now, granted, this is from Michigan, but still, it works the same way everywhere, guys, how septic systems work.
Over 40% of Michigan homes use septic systems to treat their household waste. These systems are underground, so are easy to ignore. But lack of proper care can result in costly problems that hurt our pocketbooks and our environment. Understanding your septic system is the first step to keeping it working properly. Here's how it works. When the wastewater from the house enters the tank, some of the solids settle to the bottom, and other waste such as oils and fats float to the top. Only the liquid from the middle zone leaves the tank for the drain field, where it flows through a series of pipes with openings that allow the water to percolate into gravel surrounding the pipes. As the wastewater moves into the gravel and the soil underneath, the contaminants in the sewage are filtered and treated with bacteria that occur naturally in the soil. Let's look at a few common myths. This family just paid $10,000 for their new septic system.
Now our system will last forever.
No way. The average life of a septic field is only 20 years.
But until then, we can use it without a care.
Actually, no. They must be treated carefully or they will fail even sooner.
What goes down our drains is gone for good.
Wrong again. Americans pump over 4 billion gallons of wastewater a day underground, and it doesn't just disappear. Septic systems connect to our environment. After being treated in our septic tanks and drain fields, wastewater re-enters our groundwater, streams, and lakes. Improperly treated household wastewater can contaminate our well water, swimming beaches, and wildlife habitat. Following a few simple guidelines will ensure your system works effectively. For instance, provide a barrier so vehicles don't drive or park over it. Compaction can remove the air spaces in the gravel, so critical to the percolation process. Tanks must be pumped regularly to remove the built-up sludge and scum layers. If there is not enough room in the tank for proper settling to occur, solids and fats can be pushed out before the tank can do its job. Solids that leave the tank can clog the pores between the stones. This will cause the drain field to become saturated and unable to treat the sewage, allowing contaminants to reach our environment and the system to back up.
Oh no.
It's really important to be careful what you put down your drain. Put fats in the trash so they don't clog up your system. Don't rely on your garbage disposal to get rid of food scraps. Compost or trash them instead. Gardens love your coffee grounds, but septics hate them. Drain.
That's an interesting little tip if you didn't catch that. You know, your coffee grounds, they're not bad to feed your flowers and your plant beds. They actually, it actually works as a pretty good fertilizer for them to grow.
Your coffee grounds, but septics hate them. Drains aren't trash cans. These are some of the worst cloggers. Put them in your trash, not down your drain. And just because a label says it's flushable or biodegradable does not mean it's safe for septics. And septics do not remove chemicals. Take things like solvents, paints, and pesticides to your local household hazardous waste collection site. Septic systems also don't remove the chemicals in medicines, and these compounds are showing up in our lakes and streams, posing a danger to wildlife. So wrap and trash them instead. Phosphates are found in most dishwasher detergents and are not removed by septics. They end up in lakes and streams where they cause an overgrowth of algae, which fouls our beaches and removes vital oxygen from the water. Look for phosphate-free. As each gallon enters the tank, an equal amount is pushed out. The tank needs time to do its job properly, so don't use a lot of water-producing appliances all at once, and don't let water run unnecessarily. Until you need it, turn it off. And save up for full loads of laundry instead of lots of little ones. Buy low-flow toilets and replace old laundry machines, shower heads, faucets, and dishwashers with the new ones that follow today's water-saving standards.
Me personally, I don't like low-flow toilets. I think you end up wasting more water with them because you have to flush several times to get the waste to go down. You know, having a regular toilet, I think that they're more efficient to use anyhow.
With the new ones that follow today's water-saving standards. If you have a leaky faucet or toilet, fix it immediately. Even a slow leak can overwhelm your system. Watering over the drain field can also lead to saturation and septic system failure. Remember, it's all connected. For yourself and for future generations, please take good care of your septic system.
All right. So that's that for that. Septic systems. Okay, now CERCLA is the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act. It created a super fund by Congress, which is $9 billion. And they also have a reauthorization of that fund, SARA, to replenish the super fund periodically. Now, just take a look at what DOGE is doing right now. And they're talking, you know, if we take a look at what our government's doing right now, we have DOGE, that Department of Government Accountability there for the spending. And we take a look at all of these ridiculous, wasteful programs that we're spending money on by the billions. What was it? In 1 week's time, they found just from these programs here, was it like $50–60 billion worth of waste? And that's just from that one program, but from other programs too that we've seen, wasteful programs from other departments that were defunct and the government's spending on. We almost already found $2 trillion of wasteful spending. That's with a T, trillion. Yet the Congress of the United States created a super fund of only $9 billion only. Like, that's a small amount of money, but I guess when you look at how much they waste, it is. if they were serious about the environment, you know, all of these politicians that are always talking about, oh, the environment, oh, they point at the other side of the aisle. They're not serious. They want to kill you with their toxins and their oil and stuff. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you were really serious about saving the environment, you would allocate more than $9 billion. You're giving more than that to other countries to fight wars or for DEI training in countries that find that offensive and that make them hate us. You know, trying to push these agendas of trans shows in Muslim countries where they would they're not welcoming of that. That's not what they want, you know. But we're spending more than this $9 billion on that kind of nonsense in different countries in just one program. So this is ridiculous that they would only spend $9 billion. That's not just for New Jersey. That's for the entire United States. The Superfund is a fund that was created in 1980 to clean up uncontrolled hazardous waste sites and to respond to spills. It's administered by the EPA, which also shares those responsibilities with local environmental agencies. In New Jersey, we have the DEP. The liability they put on the owner of the property for the cleanup. And if they don't take on the cleanup on their own right away, the Superfund will spend that $9 billion to do so and then come after the homeowner later. Industrial Site Recovery Act, called ISRA, and the Wetlands Protection Act cover commercial and industrial properties. They basically say anytime a business is closed down or changes ownership, it must test the soil and then do any environmental cleanups. You guys ever see a gas station that maybe they closed down or not? Maybe they're changing the ownership, and all of a sudden you see there's a fence around it and they're digging up the tanks out of the ground and replacing the oil tanks in the ground, the gas that hold the gas that they pump. You guys ever see that?
Yeah, I have.
You ever see it where they did that and then it seems like not even a year later they're doing it again? That's because some of these laws are written in black and white and no common sense in between. Because they say anytime the business shuts down or changes ownership, those tanks need to be dug up, the soil tested and everything. And they could have just done that. Now, all they're doing really is creating more environmental waste. But these laws are meant to fix the environment. But there's no common sense involved, though, so boom, there you go. Now, there's not enough money in this Superfund site, in the Superfund amendment, that $9 billion. That's not enough to clean up all the sites in New Jersey alone. Forget about the entire country. So they have to prioritize, and they have a list to prioritize different sites that are contaminated. And it could take a long time before they get to some of them. So let's highlight in the book on page 158 what CERCLA is, the Superfund, and who they put the liability on. When the release or threat of release of a hazardous substance into the environment occurs, they put that on the property owner. They're responsible for the cleanup of their own property because it's their property. Everybody got that? Anybody still working on it?
I'm done.
I'm good.
Okay. So, and then on page 159, ISRA, the New Jersey Industrial Site Recovery Act, provides for mandatory cleanup of industrial and some commercial sites when they're closed, sold, or otherwise change ownership. Recognizing the necessity for preserving the ecological balance of the areas between the sea and the land, one of the most vital and productive areas of our natural world. New Jersey legislature enacted the Wetlands Act of 1970. And under this act, the Department of Environmental Protection, the DEP, regulates certain activity in designated wetlands. Yeah, I also see page 344 and 345 down there. I put that little note. Just make that note down there too. 344 and 345, I think that just talks about the different, what gives the DEP the authority to regulate certain areas. So when any construction needs to get done, you want to build a house or do improvements to your house, the DEP has the authority to regulate certain environmentally sensitive areas to tell you whether you can do any construction or not. So not just getting permits from the local municipalities, but also from the DEP. So they're given that authority usually under a law that's named after the areas that they protect. The highlands are protected. They give them the authority under the Highlands Protection Act. The Wetlands Protection Act, and so on and so forth. They're these self-named areas. Okay, so the DEP, they're the regulators authorized by the EPA to deal with our local issues here in the state. And they have a guide they put out for builders called Buy Bob. Before you buy, before you build, you got to check and see if that area is regulated by the DEP to get permissions from them before you can do any construction. In the Highlands area, it's the Highlands Water Protection Act that gives them that authority. The Pinelands, it's the Pinelands Protection Act. The Wetlands Protection Act. The coastal areas, the CAFRA, and Waterfront Development Act as well. So the law talks about public access to beaches. They should be open to the public on an equal basis. And landmark preservation sites could also be regulated by, like George Washington slept here. Those properties can be regulated also by the local historic society. But there's also, since we got a lot of history here in New Jersey, we have a lot of historic districts in town. Those designated historic districts, when you want to do work on your own house, you don't just get a permit from the building department. You may also need to get a permit from the local historic society before you could change your roof or windows or work on your own house. Now, typically, you're free to do any renovations on the interior of your house to your heart's content. But they want you to maintain that exterior look about the house. And they generally don't allow you to change the exterior look or the footprint. So you as real estate agents need to be aware of this. Why? Because you have to be careful when puffing. What is puffing? We learned about that in chapter 3. What is puffing?
Yes, it's like telling buyers that it's a beautiful view, or exaggerating.
Yeah.
Yeah, exaggeration.
Okay, but they're exaggerated statements of opinion done as part of salesmanship. That's correct. Okay, factual statements must be accurate, though. You got to be careful, though, when puffing and selling homes in historic districts of town. You can't be telling people, wow, look at this yard, it'd be beautiful. Yeah, you could always put a deck out here or put an addition on the house or put a pool back here, because they may not be able to. And if you say that to them and it is a historic section of town and you don't tell them to check with the local historic society first, because you may need to get authority from them to do anything like that, to find out if you even can. If they buy that house And then they later on find out that, you were telling them, oh, you could always do this and you could always do that, but then they find out they can't. They relied on your information that you provided as the real estate expert. They could turn around and sue you for the damages, for that misinformation that you provided to them. What do we call that? When somebody, when you deceive somebody, but that wasn't your intent to, but they were still deceived.
Misrepresentation.
What kind of misrepresentation? There's three kinds
Yeah,
of misrepresentation.
I'm forgetting the red.
It's called negligence.
Negligent.
Yeah, so
Negligent misrepresentation.
So you'd be guilty of negligent misrepresentation in that case. So be careful about your puffing when showing homes in historic districts like that. Okay. And then direct public ownership of land is a form of land control by the government. So public access to beaches is page 160. State Supreme Court ruled that municipal beaches, whether they're dry or wet, should be open to the public on an equal basis. And local governments under landmark preservation in historic districts to preserve the historic buildings and areas of historical significance and architectural significance. Regulations set up local historic areas of landmark preservation districts may restrict an owner's right to alter certain old buildings on the exterior. So you need to be aware of that. That's on page 160. And then that concludes this chapter. Let's do the key terms to review. There is only one set of them. Before we get started for the key terms for chapter 9, go down to letter F. And at the top, because this word should be placed before the line, but I know there's no room, so just write it above the beginning of that line, the word proposed. So it'll read a proposed use that does not meet the current zoning requirements. Okay, so right above the letter F there, that definition there on the right, proposed. All right, let's start this list out now. A limit on the use of property set by the seller. A limitation on how you could use the property that is set up by the seller. What do we call that? How do they do that?
A deed restriction.
Do a deed restriction. 7 is A. Standards for construction. What are the state standards for construction?
Building codes.
2 is B, building codes. Government's power to take property for public use.
Eminent domain.
9 is C, eminent domain. Permission for construction is called?
Building permit.
A building permit. 3 is D. Inspector's approval for human habitation before anybody can live in it.
Certificate of
Occupancy. Certificate of occupancy. 5 is E. A proposed use that does not meet the current zoning requirements.
variance.
What did you say?
Variance. 17.
Yes, variance. 17 is F. That's the permit you need to get in order to use the property for a purpose that does not meet the current zoning regulations. Correct. A primary method by which local governments recognize developmental goals.
Department of Environmental Protection.
Master plan.
It's all
Master
part of their
plan.
master plan. Every municipality has a master plan on how they're going to manage that municipality. Everything from how they're going to handle the fresh water supply, how are they going to handle the waste and sewage, how are they going to educate, provide medical care, safety in case of fires or crime, or emergency management in case of natural disasters or war. They have to have traffic control and all that stuff. How are they going to manage that municipality? Every municipality has to have a master plan. How are they going to feed the public? How are they going to do this and that? They got to have a master plan on how they're going to run that municipality. And then they turn that over to the county which they're in. And then the county creates their own master plan for all the municipalities within the county. And then the county submits their master plan to the state. Then the state creates a master plan based on all of their counties' information. And then they submit that up to the federal government. And then the federal government has a master plan, how it runs the country. Okay, this is how you have a business plan. You have a master plan on how you run country, but it starts at the bottom and works its way to the top. So 13 is G, master plan. New Jersey agency overseeing natural resources. What do we call that?
Department of Environmental Protection.
The Department of Environmental Protection, the DEP. 8 is H. Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act of 1980 is also known as, for short, CERCLA. 4 is I, correct. It's just the abbreviation. Reversion of property to the state when intestate owner dies without heirs.
Escheat.
10 is J, escheat. Discriminatory local regulations.
Zoning order or ordinance?
Not zoning ordinance. Discriminatory local regulations.
Exclusionary zoning?
Exclusionary zoning. Who are you excluding? The poor, right? By requiring that larger lot sizes and not offering a range of lot sizes in order to do construction in the town. It came to be known as exclusionary zoning, and it was outlawed by the Mount Laurel court decisions. 11 is K. Court action by which government takes property.
Condemnation?
Yes, 6 is L. Eminent domain is their power. The actions of taking it through the courts is condemnation. 6 is L. Municipal restriction on uses of real estate in various areas.
That one's zoning ordinance.
Yes, it is. 18 is M, as in Michael. Existing use that does not meet current zoning standards. But then it doesn't have to, because that purpose is grandfathered. Existing use that does not meet the current zoning standards, but it doesn't have to because it was used for that purpose before they created zoning laws.
Use non-conforming use.
A non-conforming use. 14 is N as in Nancy. Once widely used wall covering containing a now banned metal. Lead-based paint. 12 is O. A naturally occurring radioactive gas.
Radon.
Radon. 16 is P. And what are considered dangerous levels of radon that require remediation?
Sorry, what? Dangerous levels of?
What are considered dangerous levels of radon that require remediation?
4 picocuries?
Yeah, 4 picocuries or 4 PCI, you could just say.
PCI, yeah.
Okay,
PCI.
so write that next to the word radon, next to number 16, where you wrote letter P. Radon, write 4 PCI. Or on exams, it could be 4 PCI/L, 4 picocuries per liter. It's a measurement, it's a minuscule measurement of the gas in the air. You do need to know it for exam. Government's right to regulate for health and safety.
Police power.
That is their police power. 15 is Q. And a now banned hazardous mineral once used for insulation. And a lot of asbestos, correct. One is R. And that concludes chapter 9, finally. But this chapter had a lot of good information about the real estate that you guys are going to be working in anyway. So I threw a lot of extras in there because it's stuff you should really know about, even though they may not test some of that stuff I was showing the videos on. They may not test on some of those things, but it was still, it's still important information we really should know about to give you a head start in real estate, you know, when you get started out there, to know about some of these basic things, okay? So, like I said, I teach this class assuming you know nothing about anything. So I try to give you guys a little bit of a leg up and a head start so that you have some understanding of how these systems work in housing. All right, so that concludes chapter 9.